So we've got Adam Murray here today from the RSPB, and you work with the, is it community empowerment team at the RSPB? Yes. To be honest, without further ado, I'll just hand over to you to get us started.
That's great. Well, thank you very much. Firstly, a big thank you to the wonderful people at the Eden Projects communities, wider sort of team, and they've been, lovely. They've sort of invited us along, which is absolutely brilliant. And yeah, thank you very much for your time as well, coming along. I see we've actually got some other RSPB faces in the mix. So if you've got any wider questions related to RSPB related things, then hopefully there'll be some of us that can answer that. But we are all today here wanting to have a chat really about a project that we're working on, which really looks at how we can essentially sort of empower more people, sort of take actions for nature and the environment. So what I'm going to do is, I've got a few slides that I wanted to share for you all. So I'm going to do that. And then we've got lots of opportunities to have that conversation. And ideally, if you guys to sort of share some of your experience personally and some of your stories, and there'll be lots of opportunities in the future as well if you want to get involved with what we're doing. So if I now see if I can share my screen, and do give me a shout or a thumbs up if everybody can see that. Fabulous. Okay, great. So a little bit about what we're going to be doing today. So where are we with our time? So we're doing all right. Again, guys, give me a nudge if we're sort of running over time. But essentially what we're going to be doing is an opportunity to look at the project we're doing, break out into different groups and have chats with one another, and then come back as a group to talk about the different things that you've been experiencing during this time, but also with some of the stories that you've been doing, of what you've been doing personally or within your communities as well. And yeah, we'll be going until about 4:30. So yeah, if you do need to have a break during that time, obviously please do skedaddle and then come back to us. We're not going to sort of tie you down for the next hour and a half. So that's the plan. Who is this bloke, Adam Murray, that you're having a conversation with? Well, this is me, and I thought I'd just give a bit of a summary of some of the things that I've been doing over the spring and summer during these very strange, unprecedented, strange, weird, these are all the words that are bounded around constantly at the moment. Rubbish, we could use some swear words as well, I'm sure, but let's not here. But who am I? So yeah, I'm head of the community empowerment team, which is a brand new team at the RSPB as of September. I've worked for the RSPB for nearly 10 years. But what I've been doing most recently with my family, we've been going out and about, daily exercises with the family. Yes, that's me with my adult size scooter. It is possible they do exist. I've been hanging out in our local park, playing kickabout with the kids. We've been rummaging around in the undergrowth, looking for wildlife. We've been chatting with our friends. We get all a bit green fingered and start trying to grow veggies in the garden, making food. And for any of you who've been trying to do homeschooling, if you've got that with loved ones, it's a nightmare, and I feel for you because we were trying to do the same. But now, yeah, for us, the kids are back at school. The house is very quiet. I should say it might not be in about half an hour when they turn back up at school. But generally, it's been a very strange old time. But for me personally, it's been a sort of lovely opportunity to sort of slow things down and appreciate locally what's in our patch and what's within our community. So that's a little bit about me. Like I said, it has been a strange old time, and what I've been doing is sort of collating sort of on social media in particular, a lot of the stuff that people have been sort of, showcasing that's been different for people during this time. And these are just some of the sort of screen grabs from my phone of some of the things that have been going on and being put out there in the press and the media. Everything from a way that we're sort of shifting how we consume things, shifting how we spend our time, and also, you know, how we potentially look to the future about how we want to sort of revive our world in a sort of more a sort of bigger, better, more sustainable way. And for those of you who are obviously part of the great work the guys at Eden Project did with the community action response, that was another great opportunity of showing that a lot of people are appreciating their local communities, both geographically, but also their sort of online communities as well, as we are all doing today, all together. So there's also some really great research, and if you haven't had a chance to see it yet, if you go and have a look at the guys at Hubbub, they've got a new thing called the Green Print. They've got some really great research in there over the last sort of six or so months, showing that actually 74% of people think that it's given society that opportunity to make important changes in how we live. So, you know, there's generally the impetus for a lot of us to say, well, how can we do things better, and how can we do things differently with where we live? This is where about the end of March, we realized that as the RSPB, there's a lot of things that we couldn't do. So yes, our nature reserves were shut down for a period of time. A lot of our community work was difficult for us to do, but we decided that it was an opportunity for us to start talking to people about different ways in which people could start taking action for nature to tackle the nature and the climate crisis. So that's when we're like, right, okay, come on, we can do this. Even though half of our organisation were furloughed, we're like, what can we do to try and make this happen? So this is the vision for our project. So an idea of creating a series of tools along with the lovely guys at Behaviour Change. This is where Isabel can give a wave, because Isabel's from Behaviour Change. There's Isabel. But building a series of tools that actually help us to help other people to take action for nature and the environment, and do this alongside other people, and do this in a way that means that actually, as we hopefully leave the pandemic behind, we're actually going to build a more hopeful future for us and the natural world. So that was the vision back at the end of March, and we decided in order to do that, we had to do things a little bit differently. So first of all, obviously we had to capture the zeitgeist of the moment, and people saying that they're actually appreciating their neighborhoods and communities and the great outdoors. We realized that we were going to have to actually speak to new, more diverse audiences, but by being inspired by active citizens who are already doing some amazing things, making sure that what we were trying to plan was a more long-term plan rather than just a sort of single one-off PR stunt or a sort of one-off thing that we were going to do. Actually a sort of sustained piece of work, helping people, because it does take a long time to start shifting people's behaviors and starting to do things differently. We wanted to do it in a participatory and kind of audience-led way. So instead of us saying, we are the RSPB and what you should do to take action for nature is this. Instead, we wanted to understand what it's like for people around the whole of the UK, what is actually relevant to them. So if we turned around and said everybody needs to buy an electric vehicle, well, that wouldn't be very clever, because a lot of people can't, well, I know I can't afford an electric vehicle. So we want to understand what was actually relevant to people, where they lived, and what actions they could take. We wanted to do it in an iterative process. We didn't know what these tools or products were going to be, because we needed to actually talk to people about, again, what they need. So again, we didn't know at the beginning, back in April, what we were going to start and what we're doing at the moment. And really, this session today is part of that kind of participatory, iterative process, because we want to hear from you guys about the sort of stuff that would work for you. And most importantly for us as well is actually bring that idea that it's a nature and climate emergency, and both of those go sort of hand to hand together. And we really need to make sure that people understand that those two are completely interconnected, and that by taking an action for nature or taking an action for climate change, it's actually all helping for that bigger overarching goal that we're all trying to achieve. However, this is not new. This is the book that I've got upstairs that I've now given to my kids, but I had this in 1990. So for those of you who were around in 1990, I was 12 at the time. I was reading this morning, And at the beginning of the book, it's like saying, this is a book about hopeful times when our kids can have a brighter future and a healthier planet. And that was 30 years ago. And admittedly, we've pretty much got rid of CFCs, which was a big thing for those who remember those, and the sort of hole in the ozone layer. But a lot of the stuff that's mentioned in this book is still going on now. And that's predominantly because of many, many, many different reasons. But a lot of the time, a lot of the different stuff that we may have seen in the past was very knowledge-based. An exchange of knowledge is that if you know this knowledge, people will do things differently. And it's not always, as we know, the case, because knowledge doesn't necessarily automatically result in people changing their behavior and starting to do things differently. But there's a lot of good stuff out there, and there's a lot for us to build on as the RSPB, but also as the environmental sector at large, and things are changing a lot. And let's not forget that even when you start looking at the stuff that's going out there and very front and center, and obviously I assume a lot of you might have watched the Extinction program with Sir David, and even within that there were 4 key things that people can do to actually make a difference. But again, it was very much do these things, be inspired by the program, but do these things. So consume less, eat less meat and dairy, reduce your food waste, and educate people. So how can we do different things differently? Well, oh yeah, I should finish up. These are my 2 little monkeys, and you know, there's some really good stuff out there. And this is a book, if you haven't seen this, and this is great for kids, but quite often if it's good for kids, it's good for me, because it breaks it down into really sort of simple language. So it just goes to show there's some really sort of good stuff out there, and that we can actually build on. So what can we kind of add to the mix rather than reinventing the wheel? Well, this gives you a bit of an outline of what we were going to do, but essentially how we're going to do things differently is, first of all, use a lot of the sort of science of behavior change, understanding what motivates people to do different things and what are the barriers to doing different things. We wanted to look at sort of co-designing things with the public. So those tools that we're talking about, sort of co-designing that and working with people rather than just coming up with a solution and hoping that it works. And the other big thing about it was the idea of the power of stories as well, and real life stories from real life human beings like all of you guys, and sharing those stories to inspire other people. So you can see from July all the way through to the sort of launch of this toolkit of a suite of products that we're wanting to sort of put out there into the world next spring. We're really going through this whole process of first of all, in July, we wanted to actually start the conversation by saying, what is it that you value and appreciate about the great outdoors during, essentially back in July, during lockdown for a lot of people? And then, as you can see, working our way through to the launch in spring. So we're right slap bang in the middle of that kind of co-design period, which, like I said earlier, is why we're all talking here together. So this is where we're going to give ourselves a bit of an opportunity, just have a little breakout session. And what I'd like you to do, I'm going to hand over to the Eden team in a moment to sort of show how on earth we do this. But in the short term, what I'd like you all to have a think about and have a chat just for a few minutes is, what have you appreciated about nature and the environment during this year, and what have you valued that you'd like to keep for the future? So with that in mind, I'll stop sharing and then the magic happens. My name's Adam Murray and I work for the RSPB, and we're here having a chat about all the things that you valued and important to you, and how we can actually help together as a sort of wider online community, kind of helping each other to take action for nature and the environment. So hopefully that was nice, sort of have a chat. I'll just say from our little group, it's really interesting hearing from Anna talking about Planet Sutherland and some amazing stuff they're doing up there about, again, helping people to sort of do things for the planet, because a lot of the times it's all a bit doom and gloom, isn't it, really? So it's actually really nice to feel as though you can take back some control and actually do something. So I'm conscious of time. I think what we'll do then is sort of skip through to the next section. So let me share my screen again. Where are we? Okay. So what I'm going to do is put up something which I'll give you a moment just to read it. Hopefully you can all read that if I move. And this, just had a chance to read that. So this is, this was actually sent in at the beginning of the project that we did for My World Now, which was a kind of hashtag that we collected all the feedback of what people valued during July. And this was really interesting, seeing the sort of real variety of stuff that people sent back. And everything that people were saying, sending stuff through as poetry and photos and artwork and a real mixed bunch of different things, which in itself was really interesting, that actually people expressing themselves through art in a creative way was a really powerful way for people to sort of like deal with what's going on. And when we actually started looking at the sort of summary of the My World Now sort of campaign that we ran in July, what was really interesting, you know, the top things that kept coming out with people is a lot of the things that you guys have said. So things around sort of knowing your community better, meeting your neighbours, having more opportunities to see wildlife. I know for a fact that this is the year that I saw like 3 different broods of blackbirds, fledgling, coming out of the sort of bushes in our garden, which I never even knew existed before. So I know I personally felt the same. And a lot of people saying that with quieter roads and cleaner air, that was also really important to people. So we're getting like a really sort of interesting look that sometimes it's not always what you necessarily expect, but definitely that sense of community and the stuff that is local to people really came out with something that's really important to people's lives. So then in August, we moved on to saying, right, if this is what people value and is important to them, let's hear a little bit about those people that are already taking action for nature and the environment and the planet in general, and see if we can start sort of showcasing some of those amazing stories. So we had a whole campaign called Actions for Nature, and we were collecting all the stuff through social media, obviously in a digital space around, under that particular hashtag. But then people can also submit their stories of what they've been doing on this website. And if you only do one thing today, wonderful people, it's to go to this website, and we'll put the link in the chat as well. And if you do anything, however big or small, for the planet and for your community and your loved ones, and you know all of that, then please do go to the website and put in what you do. It's really easy. There's a little form. You pop in a photo or a video or just some description of what you do, and it'll. We've got Chloe, who's actually on the call, who's our super duper volunteer, part of our team, helping that all get onto our websites. But get a chance to do that. So a big shout out to Chloe as well for doing that. She's a superstar. And this is a bit of a sort of snapshot of some of the things we've got between July and August. And again, it was a really lovely sort of mixed bunch of artwork and videos and photos and a real mixture. And not surprisingly, a lot of people sent in stuff around what was great about feeding the birds. We get a lot of that, not surprisingly, being the RSPB. But it was even wider than that. We did get a lot of stuff around the sort of wildlife gardening people were doing in their own gardens or even in their community spaces as well as some of the more that sort of pointy political stuff around campaigning, volunteering for different organizations, and you know a whole raft of different things that people do. And that's what we wanted to get across, to actually show that there's a lot of real life human beings out there doing great stuff, taking that control and doing stuff for the planet. And we wanted to have opportunities to sort of showcase that. So that website is live. Go and have a look at it and go and get inspired by what's out there. So what we're going to do now is I'll just stop this and let's see if we can just do a sort of open discussion. You've had a little chat in your breakout groups. So using the hand up function, so I hope everybody can see that. Has anyone got any examples of the different sort of actions for nature that they might be doing either individually or within their community. Is there anything that anybody would like to share? Feel free.
It's always tricky to go first, isn't it? So I'll chuck someone in there. So I have planted some wildflowers in my garden. I had a very scruffy patch of pebbles, actually, which wouldn't really plant anything else. So we had some lovely wildflowers, and they weren't as good this year as last year, but they were alive, absolutely teeming with buzzing and buzzing insects, bees, butterflies, all sorts. Not specifically something I've done this time, but I've definitely been more aware of it, having been home more.
Yeah.
Right, I'm going to throw it back out there to somebody else now who wants to go.
Trying to figure out how we see hands up.
I can see Ricky's hands up, and I can see Sue after. Oh, and Amanda afterwards. So Ricky, do you want to go first?
Yeah. I was just thinking that perhaps because this year's been a complete washout with the COVID and services engaging with each other to get these things going, we've got like a load of bird boxes ready to go, and we can be preparing stuff now ready for next year. Maybe doesn't mean that everything has to be on hold.
Preparation is key, eh, Ricky? It's like if you got some time, you can do it now. Then it's ready to go when we can do it, isn't it? So good shout, yeah.
Yeah.
Larry, you got the hours. I have.
Yeah, Sue, did you want to go next?
Yeah, sure. And I'll type in the chat box, Ricky, what to do about how to choose where to put your bird boxes and stuff. I took part in the Time Is Now Mass Lobby Day back in June. All the days seem the same and all the weeks seem the same. So at some point earlier in the summer, I took part in that and met some local people in my community who were also keen to lobby their MPs. And we got a meeting with our MP, Adam Murray, and we had a really good conversation with her. And we kind of know that she's an ally now, which is good. And yeah, there's a lot of political stuff happening locally here at the minute, and I feel like I dipped a toe, so I need to kind of get on that a bit more. But that was quite empowering. It felt good to meet other people in my community who were passionate about it, and to have that successful meeting with a decision maker was really, that felt quite good.
That's great, and it's a similar sort of conversation. We had a sort of meeting with some of our youth representatives, and a lot of those guys were saying, if you go to sort of protests, you have to be a sort of person, don't you? You have to be like a hippie, and you have to be like, you know. And it was a bit, and so there was a stigma. You know, those guys were saying there's like a stigma. You have to be a sort of person to go to a protest. And we were like, no, it's, you know, everybody can do it. You know, everybody can go out and do it there and take some sort of a political with a small p action as well. So yeah, brilliant. Thanks, Sue.
I think Amanda was going to go next. Just before we hand over to you, Amanda, I know Claire's just put in the chat she's struggling with internet, but she said that they organised a plastic pickup to help their local area. Brilliant, great. Right, Amanda, you had your hand up.
Yeah, well, I have been on protests. I'm a member of Extinction Rebellion, actually, and I'm also an RSPB volunteer. I'm the membership secretary for my local group. And I had a go at the Time Is Now, but my MP is never happy to play ball and wouldn't. So that was that. So I've written to my MP. He's getting a letter from me every week now. And I went to Cardiff and protested. And yesterday I went litter picking with some friend from XR to show that we don't just cause trouble. And I don't know what else I can do. I've had conversations with people in my community. That's what I'm trying to do. And I have a plan to go and speak, well, on the Zoom meeting, to speak to the parish council and say, come on, a lot of you are farmers, what are you going to do? I think I've got to do that. That's why I came on this thing today, to summon up the courage and to get some ideas.
Well, yeah, exactly. I'm with Sue. Like, absolutely, it's amazing, Amanda. And you're what we would normally call like an active citizen. You do not sit on your bum. You get out there and you do stuff. But sometimes it is kind of scary just doing it either by yourself, and sometimes you end up being that one person. You look around and you're like, oh, it's gonna have to be me then, because no one else is going to sort of stand up and take that first move. But just from my experience, I've done a similar thing in my community in Norwich, and I had to do a similar sort of thing. But then you find like-minded people, and all of a sudden you're considered the people to go to. Either the council come to you and say, right, we need to talk to you guys because you're the representatives of the community. So, you know, all I'd say is that if you do take that first stand, there'll be a whole bunch of people behind you ready to follow you as well. So yeah, brilliant. Any other thoughts before we move on? Any other stories? So Alex? So we got Alex and then goes Sue. Oh, I think I'm on mute, Alex.
I got it. So yeah, it's just really to say it sort of fits in with things other people have said, but the fact that there were so many online events enabled me to learn so much through this time, and it sort of increases the ability for us all to be pervasive with our action online. So I think it'd be great if organisations can keep that going, you know, from here, and enable replays of online events so that people who, you know, can't get to them can access and learn and then take action from it. So
yeah, it's amazing how quickly all of us have had to, I mean, the guys at Eden as well, all of us, we've had to sort of shift into that digital online space. But oh my goodness, the sort of inclusivity, a lot of as well, is brilliant, because everybody can, doesn't matter where you are, what you do, as long as you can get online somehow, then it's great. Okay, Sue, I presume from Cambridge, not Sue Cambridge.
Yeah, sorry.
Hello.
I agree with what you just said about keeping that stuff online and the recording, so you can actually tell other people to go and look at it if they didn't get the chance, because there's been some amazing stuff, particularly Eden Project stuff. It's just been wonderful. And what I was going to say on one other that I was on, which I think can link in with getting support from like-minded people, because with our community garden, it backs on, there's one big street, one long road, and there's roads that go off it. And it's been going for about 7 years, originally through Transitions Movement, which is very active in Cambridge. And basically, you know, it always ends up being you are the same person. It's always the same person who ends up doing things, which is fine, but I think it needs spreading. And on one of these other, I can't remember which it was, somebody came up with this wonderful idea where you get an ambassador in each road, so that they just deal with, they get to know people in their own street. It's not a big thing. It's like not that many people that they have to go and talk to or, you know, do things with. And I started initiating that here. Just anybody who walks past the community garden, I found out which street they live in, and it's building up. And it just feels I was really excited by that as a way of cutting across that it's always the same people. Amanda, it sounds like you're doing amazingly, and you get support. You need support to do this stuff. It's really hard if you're just doing it by yourself for the community who benefit. I'll stop now. Okay.
I hear you, and as somebody who's the chair of our local community group, it's blooming exhausting. Yeah. And you need to spread the love, don't you, a little, otherwise you just go pop. And I remember really, when I was at the Eden Project Community Camp, and it was a couple of years ago, and we did a really great session on burnout. So just, yeah, look after yourselves, and there's a lot of other good people out there wanting to do stuff as well. So yeah, do share. Any last ones? Otherwise we'll move on. I can't really see Lowry, so nope.
No, I'm not seeing any of the hands.
Fabulous. Okay. Great. Well, I mean, that in itself is a really sort of lovely mix of different things that people are doing, and it just goes to show as well that, you know, with us at the RSPB, we're wanting to show that there is that diversity of different actions that you can take for the planet, for all the nature of which we are part of nature, and sort of the problems with climate change as well. So getting those stories out and showing that, again, real life human beings are doing that stuff is part of what we're trying to do with this project. So if all of you guys doing awesome stuff can go and share your stories, that might inspire other people to then start doing stuff as well. So it's not the likes of Amanda's of this world who's having to do everything as well. So yeah, do share. And they've got some great stories coming through, so we'll make sure we have a look at that and capture those as well. Okay, so what we're going to do now, I'll just head back to my slides. Okay, so this gives a little bit of a flavour of some of the sort of captures a lot of the stuff that we got through during August and September. And like I said, Chloe in our team has been frantically sorting everything that's been coming through into these different sorts of categories. Now, for the RSPB, you might assume that a lot of the stuff that we normally do is around giving nature a home, such as sort of like stuff in your gardens or your local community. It might be about, you know, supporting others, you know, such as becoming a member or volunteer or things like that. Obviously, we do a lot of campaigning work. So our latest Revive Our World campaign is live. So do take a look at that. Wildlife champions, that's a lot of wildlife enthusiasts, you know, with expertise and different sort of taxa of beasties that are out there. But two of the main things that we didn't have got a lot of experience in is stuff around sustainable living. So we've got a lot of people sending in stories about that, and also people inspiring others through creativity as well. And I think that's a really sort of exciting opportunity, because it automatically opens up a huge area of different sorts of people that are having a sort of creative response to the crisis that's going on at the moment, and not only within the pandemic, but also with the sort of nature and climate crisis as well. So we've got a really diverse different sorts of actions that people can take. And for the rest of this session, what we'd like you guys to do is to look at some of these different themes. And I've added on an extra one at the end, because this was coming in really sort of like strongly as well. And not surprisingly for this group, time with your tribe, you know, building a stronger community with family, friends, neighbours, or an online community, also came through really, really strongly. So what we're going to do is split you up into the different breakout groups, and looking at these different categories, look at what are the benefits of doing these different actions, and what are the barriers that might actually stop people taking these actions as well. So just for clarity's sake, I'll just go through these one more time. So you've got campaigning for change, which, you know, we mentioned some of those things like going to the parish council, speaking to your local decision makers, voting, things like that. Giving nature a home. So that's kind of, you know, feeding or watering wildlife, physically giving them homes or habitats, either in your local community space, or if you have got a garden, even if you've got a balcony or a, you know, something like that. Inspiring through creativity, so getting creative, so not necessarily the arts, you know, nice and broadly around getting creative. Stuff around citizen science, so there's loads of brilliant opportunities just from the environmental sector around different citizen science projects you can do. And then obviously stuff around sustainable living, which is everything around food, energy use, purchasing power as well. So with those in mind, what we'd like you to do, like I said, is how can we empower people to take action for nature by looking at what are the benefits and what are the barriers to taking those different actions. Now, I'll stop sharing for the moment. And then I'm just trying to remember, Laurie, did we say that people are going to have different themes for different groups?
Yeah, so just to make sure we kind of cover all of these, we were thinking that we're going to split you into 6 groups, if that's all right. So when you join the breakout room, have a note of what room number you are, and then in the chat I've given each one of those topics that Adam just went through a number. Hopefully that makes sense. So basically, if you're breakout room number 2, you'll be doing Giving Nature a Home. Just to make sure that, because it's such a broad range of topics to cover otherwise. If you feel like you've covered your topic, like I'm sure we're happy, Adam will be happy for you to move on to another one and go through as many as you like.
Yeah.
So we're going to pop you in these rooms now for 15 minutes, I think we said, didn't we, Adam?
Yeah, well, should we do 10 minutes and see how you go? And then that then gives us, what we're coming up to.
We're a bit later than we planned, aren't we?
Yeah, so let's give ourselves up until, 4 o'clock, and then we'll sort of come back and have a good, lovely session on getting feedback from everybody.
Great.
We'll see you shortly.
Record again. Hi guys, welcome back. You were obviously all having really good discussions because none of you came back until you were forced to.
Yeah, poor old Hannah in our group was like mid-sentence, and we sort of dragged people back. So I don't know if it was the same for other groups as well.
Sorry, that's why the countdown's meant to be there, but sometimes you just ignore it, don't you?
Just ignore it. Let's keep on chatting. That's what we're going to do, which is what the whole point of this is. All I've got to say is we were never going to be able to cover off everything and all the amazing stories and thoughts that you all have. So just again, a big plea for you guys to share your stories and thoughts with us, and I'm sure the guys at Larry and the guys will be able to sort of help us with that as well. So what we're going to do now, this is the super techie awesomeness that we're going to try, is we're going to try and capture some of your thoughts from the different groups. So Larry, over to you.
So bear with us. We're going to give this a go because it's not something I've done before. And I'm going to move that stuff. Basically, you should be able to see my screen at the moment, which sort of covers those few topics that we just had you chatting about. And there should be, hopefully, an option on your option bar where you can sort of play with your audio and video settings to annotate. So what we were going to do was allow people to sort of add themes that they were talking about themselves. Adam, there we go. Ricky's having a test.
There we go.
Sorry.
We've got graffiti.
That's all right.
That's graffiti artist. At least it's in the right section, Ricky, as well, inspiring through creativity.
Where is this option?
So if you go to view options at the top of your screen, if you're on a laptop or a computer, and do the drop down box of view options, it says annotate. So if you click on annotate, then you can, there we go, people. Fantastic.
There we go. I'd like to clear that in a minute. We can have why don't we have a few seconds for everyone to play to see if they can work it out.
But basically you can type, and this is what we want you guys to do, is type some of your different answers and thoughts into these different boxes. So for those of you who only worked on one topic, but you've got some thoughts on the others, now's our opportunity to do it. And what I'd say is that we've got, let's look at the time. I think we've got a good, let's say 10, 15 minutes to do feedback. So here we go. Fantastic. Okay, so what we're going to do is let's go around each of the groups first, and but feel free to add in your own thoughts and comments as we go through. So if we can start with group number 1. So that was the group I was in. It was Hannah, Glynis and Sue. So does one of you guys want to give your thoughts on the benefits and barriers of campaigning for change? I don't know, Hannah, whether you got cut off, so whether you're allowed to have more time to speak. Sue, Hannah, Glynis?
Oh, yes. So, sorry, I was busy reading. I think we all kind of agreed that it could be quite empowering and exciting to get involved in campaigning. And quite easy because there's quite a lot of different ways that you can get involved, like online stuff like signing petitions and things, or you can get out and join protests. Hannah, before she got cut off, was saying about joining the youth climate strikes, and I did that last year too, and it was so exciting to feel those young people shouting and being heard. That was great. And we were saying, what else are we saying? Glynis, you said something really good, and I can't remember what it was. Oh, you were talking about barriers, when about it being difficult to get to grassroots.
Yeah, so it's getting it across to people whose maybe language isn't first languages, and different, different people who are not used to thinking about issues around climate change, and get them involved, get people, local people, which is what a lot of the groups in Hull are. They're setting up in different areas. So although I'm not necessarily connected to one in particular, I'm connected to a food bank, a food delivery service, and I know that some allotments produce food to give to food banks. So some campaigning stuff is quite sort of simple, so it's just your local, round the corner, and then the cleanups, and there's groups now who've set up to sort of get volunteers, their Facebook groups, and that's what's good about the internet. It gets people, connected and knowledgeable about all sorts of different things, from climate change to social justice, and young people are doing it, so it's really good, actually. They're leading a lot of things.
And another benefit is that you can actually, you can make really big changes, really big differences by getting involved in campaigning, because if you're doing, if you help to get something like the legal framework changed, or an Environmental Protection Act brought through Parliament, or it's something, you can make really big changes if you get involved in campaigning. Keeping the politicians to account is another matter, but theoretically, you can make really changes.
And that's one of the barriers, isn't it? We were saying is that sometimes when it does work, it's blimmin' amazing. So you feel as though you've actually, like I said, like our Revive Our World now sort of campaign, but equally, if you see that they're not being accountable and breaking international laws, for example, then it's a little bit more.
Do that. No one would do that, surely.
Brilliant. Okay, thank you, Group 1. Group 2, Giving Nature a Home.
I'm happy to feedback on this one just because I took notes. So we had a really good discussion, and the benefits, we were just saying practically everything. It literally, looking after nature and giving it a home, it can save humanity, and it can save humanity a lot of money. We also felt we had a moral duty to do it as well. And Abigail wrote in the chat a really nice bit. People need to know about the eco services that nature provides and the cost of these if nature were no longer present. So yeah, massive benefits really. And then with the barriers, we said there's a general lack of understanding and a lack of exposure, especially feel like throughout the generations this has sort of got lost. And then also consumeristic society, I think is a barrier to this. Modern tech has its benefits, but it does sort of take time away from being outside and connecting to nature. The education system, lack of nature in the curriculum. And then also some people might just have a lack of confidence, don't really know where to start. And then deprivation as well. So it might just sort of be the last thing that people are thinking about if they've got other priorities. So yeah, I think that was pretty much everything.
Fabulous. And again, that came up in our youth workshop that we came up with as well, is that it seems they need to cost a lot of money. If any of you have had to buy large amounts of wildflower seed, my goodness, it costs an absolute fortune, let alone feeding the birds. And quite often we do get a lot of responses from people, the RSPB, saying, I feed my birds every single day, but it costs me a fortune. And it does. And whether you're building a bird box, like Ricky and the guys, a lot of that can cost a lot of money. So that is a bit of an issue. Okay, great. I'm really interested now, moving on to inspiring through creativity. So of the creatives amongst you, But yeah, group 3. Hello, group 3. Who wants to be brave?
I can go. Oh, Sophia, because you explained your when you were
Sure.
talking about.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if you wanted to talk about it. But I guess we were talking about how because we're such social creatures, it could be beneficial to combine this idea of creativity with a sort of group project. That way there's like less pressure on the individual person, and also it can actually be really motivating to do something if you feel like you're part of a community that's interested in this thing. So one kind of specific example that I sort of thought of was this idea of having a local kind of children's project where they think of various ways that they can introduce little new elements into their family's backyard that could make it friendlier to wildlife. So for example, you could give the kids a little sort of information session where you tell them about like where hedgehogs like to live and what could be a really great habitat for them, or how certain types of plants or piles of sticks are great hiding spots for various invertebrates and mice and sort of stuff like that, and then encourage them to go and like have a think about how they can in their backyard make little simple changes that would make it friendlier to wildlife. And then so I think making it a sort of group endeavor where the kids maybe then have like a little session where they get together and they talk about what they did, maybe show photos, that introduces this sort of group spirit element to it, and I think that can be really stimulating.
Yeah, we also said like looking for the gain to each person. Like if you are somebody that really enjoys being in a social situation, or if you could make it into a competition and you could being creative and being using your imagination for all of these other different kind of aims for action, you can just bring that element into it. And I just had a little bit of a chat about our community camp at Eden Project, where we have workshops on play for people that they might be working in more in that kind of campaign space where it's fighting against policy or fighting for policy change, and that's the common kind of thing that they're doing. But then we take them into a workshop where they're just playing around like kids and just having a shift into a different way of looking at the problems that you're trying to work on, and finding new approaches and meeting new people through networking where you're getting a different perspective, or seeing somebody like you that's doing the work you kind of want to do, and then kind of sort of seeing new ways of doing what you're trying to achieve can be really powerful for just either learning a new way you might do something, but also just sparking your mind into a different kind of place so that it clicks for you. And we're kind of also saying you maybe can't teach somebody everything they need to know, but if you can spark their kind of imagination on something, they'll go away and learn and do the research themselves, and get excited and try and go further.
Brilliant, love it. And what's really interesting about that is I thought one of the barriers that might come up is that you need to feel as though you're good at art or creative in order to be able to then do those things. But what you're saying is actually having fun and the use of play and stories, all of those are a form of creativity, but also, like you say, shifting your perspective on how you're looking at a particular thing. So that's really great. Thank you guys. If you can pop some of those ideas around barriers into the box there, that'd be good. Right, zooming now onto the citizen science team. So over to group 4.
Okay. Who wants to thingy back from our group? Do you want to go?
Jake, you had a lot of good points. If you want to go ahead and speak, go.
I'll speak briefly. We spoke about things like we talked a bit about doing with kids doing stuff like measuring the air pollution. Someone mentioned around doing litter picking, but it kind of led on kind of with a lot of conversation should be around like how much how important individual change is. How is it really that important compared to like societal and company changing? And we're saying like if you do a litter pick, is it the individual's fault who's dropping the litter? Is it, say, the company's fault? Or is it, there needs to be things like, something I like to see is like a single-use tax. There's a theory called like donut economics, single-use tax on products. But also, yeah, like how we create that change within government and organisations.
Interesting. I mean, I think what's really interesting there is that that constant conversation, and we're having these conversations with the guys at Behaviour Change, like Isabel, is that the sort of aggregated impact of people's individual actions. It's that idea of, you know, that old mantra of small things all add up and make a difference. Well, I think I'd probably change that now to the right small things all adding up can make a difference. And so that idea of individual action plus societal shifts in norms and political, you know, UK-wide and devolved country sort of decision making. It all needs to be mixed.
Yeah, this is coming from someone who, I'm a vegan myself. I think 90% of my clothes are secondhand.
Yeah.
Most of the time I take public transport, but
yeah.
I still feel like at the end of the day, it's not enough. This is a very quick point, but one of the like problems with like individual change that I kind of see happening is that people get too like complacent or happy with what they're doing, and nothing else changes. But, yeah.
Interesting. They think, there we go, I'm done. It's like,
yeah,
okay,
yeah.
I've become a vegan.
It's a start. It's a start.
Exactly. And it's at what point, going back, you know, thinking about some of the things other people have spoken about, is at what point do you say I'm done versus actually if I try this new extra thing. So it's not just helping people take that first step, it's actually helping people take that next step as well. So yeah, fascinating.
Conscious consumption.
Yes. Exactly.
One like individual change is like retrofitting homes, but that needs to be like making homes more eco-friendly. But that needs to be led by councils and the government to get that installation, to get the like triple glazing.
How's that going to happen? People like Amanda again, and the rest of us, all standing up and shout and just being really annoying to all the councils.
Yeah, I guess that's where the interplay between these different types of action comes in, isn't it? There is only so much you can do as an individual, and you can do all those things, but really in order to make the difference you have to reach out to other people, and you know, within your community, or you have to join in with campaigning or something to take that up to the next level, and by meeting other people who also feel like they're doing their bit, but you know, then you start to aggregate those active people together, and then they start to become really powerful.
I wouldn't underestimate the individual thing in terms, we are all consumers and we do have an effect. I used to work in co-op development and with Whole Foods and stuff like that, when they were all considered, oh, that's really hippie, you know, and nobody went there. But certainly the two places in Cambridge with the Whole Food co-ops have survived all that time. And now supermarkets, you know, there was a time where supermarkets, organic, what's that, you know, and they realised, and that was through consumers wanting this. We do have some influence on that level as well, I think. So, you know, that change can start being influenced because they want to make their profits. I mean, unfortunately, we live in this capitalist system, which hopefully one day will get changed as well. Another opportunity here.
And it all goes down to power in your pocket. And I always say, when people say, like, I can't do anything, don't do anything, it's like, whether however little or much money that we spend, everywhere we spend that has power. Which brings me on to Sustainable Living Group. I'm whizzing through these, I realise, but Sustainable Living Group number 5. Hello, group number 5. You guys have popped some stuff in there already. So everyone can cut down consumption, emotional benefits. So there's definitely benefits based on different things you can do. Communal benefits, growing veg locally using local services. And I would even say, we've done this at the top of our road, is we've got like a communal sort of herb bed, which doesn't sound very much because we're not going to save the planet by just doing that. But the added benefits are, people are like, oh, the kids understand that you can grow food and eat it. They understand that actually we're taking over part of our local green space, and the council know that we've taken it over and that we care about it. So they're now invested into the area, and it has that huge knock-on effect of all those different things. So yeah, absolutely. And the barriers there of, yeah, as ever, time, money, energy. Somebody said, what was it on the radio, I think this morning, saying that we need to make eco-friendly affordable, because a lot of the time eco-friendly is, potentially for the white middle classes, and that's it, and this is where I'm talking about with Glinius as well, that whole idea of social justice and how all of it is wrapped up together, and needs to make sure that it's accessible for all. Okay, well, group 5, I'm going to skip over you guys. Yeah, you're a quiet bunch, and over to time with my tribe. So last group, group number 6.
Nobody's, I'll pitch in there. So I've added into the form, I couldn't format it properly, but so just some ideas about building community, starting a kind of street garden. So it's a kind of localized, and hopefully neighbours will start talking to each other and so on. And one of our group had started a podcast about various topics to try and spread the word that way and build a kind of online community, but also building that community with friends, and with spreading the word to friends. Hopefully friends would spread that wider as well. And we were running carbon cafes, which were bringing all sorts of cross sections of communities together that just were either worried about or wanted to do something about the climate. So yeah, so all these, obviously all building social connections in various different ways. And the barriers were COVID. I mean, that's really stopped face-to-face interaction, and lots of people really just do not want to get together on a Zoom session, and either for various different reasons, including the technical issues and so on as well. Yeah, I think we can probably all help to share podcasts and things around to various people, so we've actually got the podcast mentioned on here from Chloe. It's podcast@codharma.org. So things like that we can all just share around to get that wider reach. So it's a barrier, but we're here to help. Council issues, having our council refusing planning permission and so on, but that should be reducing with the climate, with the council, various council climate working groups and so on.
Brilliant. Thank you, Anna, and thank you all. This, like I said, we've got the opportunity of still adding stuff into the chat. We're capturing all of that information. Due to Larry's sort of amazing technical gadgetry, we're going to be able to capture everything that you guys have popped on there as well. What I would say is that we'll do, obviously, the Eden team do a sort of follow-up. So there are opportunities to sort of sending in additional feedback. So if you're sat there having one of your short 5-minute showers each day, then you can sort of send in your and you've got to have a brainwave, then you can send it in to us as well. But what I'll do now is just sort of share the last few slides with you in the last sort of few minutes, and sort of so we can wrap up. Where are we? There we go. So, I mean, this has been hugely valuable to likes of Isabel and myself and Chloe working on this project. We need to make sure that we're sort of carrying on this conversation. One of the main sort of things that's come out of a lot of these conversations with the wider public is this whole idea of sort of interconnectedness, and the fact that not only are birds and the rest of wildlife and nature and the environment and nature and climate, it's all interconnected, and getting that across to people in itself can sometimes be a bit of a struggle. But also all of us, and the pandemic in itself has shown how connected we all are. Just, you know, if any of you have had to deal with track and trace, for example, we all know how sort of connected we are from where we live. But also that whole idea, and it goes back to what you were saying, Jake, about that idea of sometimes is it the first step that people are taking, or is it just the next step that people are taking? Because actually all of those individual actions are actually connected, because you can start, you know, it starts like that domino effect of, before you know it, you can consider yourself like an active citizen doing good stuff for you, your loved ones, your community and the planet. So I think we're going to start, a part of this project, sort of build on that idea of connectedness, and see where that takes us with that sort of toolkit of stuff. Jake.
Just very quickly about the connectedness around like the idea of intersectionality and the environmental movement interlinking with like social justice movements, with like Black Lives Matter, and you not being able to pick and choose with what movements you support, how they are all interlinked. And yeah,
and it's that has been, I mean, if you think about it with the RSPB, we didn't even, our wider movement building team, which is all about helping people feel part of that, you know, wider movement, and actually, you know, that scale of the different sort of movements that are out there, we didn't even exist until last September. So, you know, because we were quite just looking at what we were doing and our own objectives, and all of a sudden, you know, at least our wider team are looking at how we can look outwards and look at, you know, how we can help out people from across all these different movements, because like you say, they're all completely connected. And importantly as well, you know, what we're trying to do as well is kind of look to the outside world and say there's a lot of amazing, great people doing great things. This is the opportunity where, you know, we're the RSPB have got a platform along with the other sort of environmental NGOs as well, to sort of showcase some of the really sort of great work that's out there. So this is just some of the sort of screen grabs that I've had over the last couple of weeks. So everything from what Mia, who's one of my fellow Eastern England community camp participants over in Lincoln doing her Art Ninja work, through to just hearing what Glynis has, you know, been doing on this call, through to you know, the community fridges, the Too Good To Go app that you can have, all the way through to cities building buildings that can actually clean up smog from the air. There's a lot of amazing stuff out there, and this is just, you know, shows us that, you know, we don't want to reinvent the wheel. We want to showcase all the great stuff that is out there, and a lot of stuff that you guys are doing, we want to hear about as well. So with that in mind, I just wanted to sort of finish up by saying a big thank you, and please do, you know, every single one of you, it sounds like, has got an amazing story to tell, and we'd love to hear about it and be able to showcase that to the world. And ideally, moving forward through the autumn and winter, we, like I said, we're sort of building, with advice from you guys and others, building that toolkit, which again, with hopefully other organisations as well, will help people starting to take action for nature and the environment. So I'll leave that there. A big thank you for all your time. A big thank you to the Eden Communities team. And I'll pass over to Larry.
Thank you so much, Adam. Some of you may have seen, I've just popped a quick link in the chat box. You have to scroll back a bit. Just if you were willing to lend us 2 minutes of your time, it's just a quick survey, just to give us some feedback on this session, so we can learn and evaluate what's working and what people want. That would be really useful. Thank you for that. Thank you all so much for joining us. Hope it's been good for you. Thank you so much, Adam, for that awesome session. And thank you also for the patience with the annotating and the with our new style of feeding back. That's what I'm trying to say, because that's something we've not played with before, so it's slightly chaotic. You may have seen me moving stuff around. So yeah, I've shared the survey. Just a quick, I'm going to pop a few links in our in the chat box again, just to give you some links on where we advertise events like these. So we've got, oh gosh, that's a lot of text. I may have duplicated that. There we go. So we have the Eden Communities website and the Eden Communities Facebook page all have upcoming events on them. We also have our community Facebook group, which you're welcome to join. And then I've also put the RSPB Action for Nature link there. In case you want any of those later, you can, if you click on the 3 dots of the chat, you can save the chat to your own computer or the device you're using. So you're welcome to do that. Before we go, I'm going to do a shameless plug because some of you may be interested. At Eden Communities, we run a community camp every year, which Adam mentioned, and he actually went to one year a few years ago. This year we're trialling it out virtually. So it's going to be loads of really interesting workshops, plenary sessions, interactive sessions online across 5 weeks, I think. So I will... Sharon, do you have the link for that by any chance? I've lost it in all my other links. So if anybody's interested in that, it's open to anybody who is volunteering for their community or who wants to do more in their community. I'm hoping Sharon might be able to have the link. But no, I've totally lost my link.
I've just put it in the chat now, so that takes you through to some more information about camp, and then an application form. So it's a fully funded place and it will be online. So it's workshops for people to learn more that in ways that might be useful, but also just to network and meet people and kind of that exchange of ideas and things like that. So that is the link that I've just put in the chat there.
Brilliant, thank you. So yeah, that's it from us. Thank you so much for joining, and hope to see you all soon, and have a good rest of your Monday. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone. Cheers.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Thanks for meeting you. You're all great.
Yeah.
Bye.